Sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitathaya Tattvabodha Vidhiyate. Thank you, Swamiji, for a very flattering introduction. I feel flattered, but I'm happy nevertheless because everybody likes flattery. In Hindi, they say even God also likes flattery. With that, as Swamiji said, we'll first summarize this text, Tattvabodha. Tattvasya bodha, Tattvabodha. Bodha means knowledge. Tattvabodha, the knowledge of Tattvam, the knowledge of truth. Upanishad says, Atma avare drashtavya. You must know the self. Because Atmani drashte idam sarvam viditam. By knowing the self, knowing the truth, you know everything. Etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrutyasya bharata. Lord Krishna says, gaining this knowledge, one becomes buddhiman, possessed of buddhi, possessed of intellect, in the true sense. Kritakrutyasya bharata. This knowledge makes one feel kritakritya. And now the sense that I have done whatever needs to be done in my life. There is a complete satisfaction with oneself, with what needs to be done, with what needs to be known, with what needs to be achieved. A complete satisfaction, contentment, which is what one is seeking in life all along. And therefore, the purpose of life gets fulfilled by Tattvabodha, by the knowledge of Tattva, knowledge of truth, which happens to our own self. Knowledge of truth is the same as knowledge of self, knowing myself. Now, knowing myself is what I need to do. Sounds rather strange. But I know myself, I know who I am. Vedanta says that is a problem, that I know myself. Meaning that I am constantly aware of myself. And therefore, I have a conclusion or an opinion about myself all the time, which unfortunately happens to be quite contrary to what I truly am. Whereas, as the Upanishad says, as the Vedanta teaches, that you are Brahman, I am limitless, so limitlessness is my nature. As revealed by Upanishads, by Vedanta, by the scriptures. But my own perception of myself is that I am a limited being. On one hand, I have this perception that I am limited. On the other hand, I am not comfortable with myself. I am not comfortable with the self that I perceive. I'm not comfortable with the limited self that I find myself to be. And therefore, in the words of my teacher, Pujya Swamiji, I am the problem when I know myself wrongly. Therefore, I become the solution when I know myself rightly. Since there is already a wrong knowledge about the self in my life, and since that wrong knowledge or that wrong perception is the cause of my sorrow and all my conflicts in life, therefore, the right knowledge, yathartha jnanam, knowing the self as the self what I truly am, is a solution to all my perceived problems and is a means of achieving what it is that I am seeking in life. Therefore, the importance, not only importance, inevitability, absolute necessity of Tattvabodha, necessity of self-knowledge. As human beings, we cannot do without that. Either we know ourselves rightly, or unfortunately, we know ourselves wrongly, as it is right now, and therefore, right knowledge is a solution. That's what Tattvabodha, this text does. It gives us the right knowledge, right perception of ourselves, and the way Vedanta unfolds this is by first explaining why do we have the perception about ourselves that we have. What is the reason why I look upon myself as a limited being? The question is, if limitlessness is my nature, what is the reason why I take myself to be a limited entity? The answer is that limitedness is indeed someplace. There is something about me that is limited, but the limitedness is not where I think it is. There is certainly limitedness. This body is limited. My mind is limited. My sense organs are limited. My intellect is limited. I'm limited time-wise, place-wise, memory-wise, knowledge-wise. In every way, there is limitation about something about me. But Vedanta teaches that the limitation is not where I think it is. There is limitation, but not in the self. It is what Vedanta says in non-self. Meaning that what I take to be the self right now has two components. One is the self that truly I am, and other is the non-self, Atma, Anatma. So this body, sense organs, mind, intellect, which I habitually take to be myself, and which are limited in every way, Vedanta teaches and helps us understand that that is not the self. There is birth and death that's in the body. There is limitedness in the mind, intellect, in my personality. But I am the person manifesting through a personality. That I, which we call ego or individual self, has these two components. One is I, the self, other is the non-self. They are both lumped together, and therefore the limitations belonging to non-self, to anatma, to the body, to the sense organs, to the mind, those limitations are taken to be limitations belonging to the self. Vedanta says this is aviveka. Viveka, separation. Separating the self from non-self will be called viveka. Lumping together the two is aviveka, non-discernment, non-discrimination, which means that we are born with aviveka, born with non-discrimination. Where there are two, I take them to be one. And therefore, Vedanta teaches that it is necessary to recognize anatma or non-self as non-self, for us to recognize the self as a self. So in what I call I right now, the self and non-self both are lumped together. I should recognize, like an actor who is wearing a costume, like a very wealthy actor who performs the role.
Swamiji, you're muted, right? Ah.
That actor who is very wealthy is playing a role of a beggar on the stage. Imagine that for some reason, maybe intoxication, he thinks that I am a beggar. Rather than knowing that I am playing the role of beggar, thinks I'm a beggar. Then somebody has to teach him that beggar belongs to your costume. Thus Vedanta teaches that that is the costume, non-self. So Atma, Anatma, Viveka, discerning or discriminating Atma from Anatma, the self from the non-self, the actor from the costume. So question is asked here in Tattvabodha. Atma kaha. What is the nature of the self? Answer is given. Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharirat, Vyatiriktaha, Panchakoshatitaha, Avasthatra, Sakshi San, Satchidananda Swarupa San, Yastishtari Satma. Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharirat, Vyatiriktaha. I truly, what I am, the Atma, the self, I am Vyatirikta, quite distinct from Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira. This costume, the non-self, is further divided for the sake of our easy understanding. This body, called Sharira, is explained as consisting of three levels or three layers: Sthula, Sukshma, Karana. Gross body, subtle body, causal body. Sthula. Who am I? I am the witness of these three bodies. These three bodies are of the nature of costume, and I am the one who put. Where is the costume? So, first is recognizing the distinction between the body and the self. Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Idam shariram kaunteya kshetramita abhijite kaunteya. Hey Arjuna, this body, the gross, the subtle and causal body is kshetram, is drishyam, is anatma, is non-self. Etadyo veditam prahu kshetrajna. The one who is knower of this body is called kshetrajna, is the self. The known and the knower. The seen and the seer. A simple method is applied here called Druk Drishya Viveka, separating the drashta from drishya, subject from object. Panchakoshatitaha. Other way of looking upon this costume is Panchakosha. The 5 sheets. See, Tattvabodha is a text. It's called Prakarana Grantha, Prakriya Grantha. It explains various models that are used in different places in the Vedanta. One model is to describe the Atma as different from the 3 bodies, as I just said. Panchakoshatita. Other is to enable us to see that Atma, the self, is beyond Panchakosha, 5 sheets. So this personality also is called sheath, like a scabbard is for a sword. How the scabbard prevents us from seeing the sword which is in there. So as though this personality made up of 5 sheets, as though prevents us from seeing ourselves as truly we are. Tattvabodha explains these 5 sheets are Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. From the grossest level to the subtlest level. Panchakoshatita. Recognize that you are the seer, witness, illuminator. You transcend the 5 sheets. Annamaya, the gross body, made up of modification of food. Then there is subtle body, which consists of the Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, a sheath of vital air, Pranamaya, a sheath of mind, Manomaya, emotional faculty, a sheath of intellect, knowing faculty, Vijnanamaya, and what is called bliss sheath, the sheath made of bliss or ananda, happiness. We will progressively recognize ourselves as different from these 5 sheets, progressively, from the grossest to the subtlest. Avasthatraya sakshi san. The third method also employed in the Upanishads is avasthatraya viveka, recognizing the self as the witness. Avasthatraya sakshi, the witness of the 3 states of mind called waking, dream, deep sleep. This avasthatraya viveka is the main topic of the Mandukya Upanishad. The Panchakosha Viveka is the main topic of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Waking, dream, and deep sleep. When the self is identified with the gross body, then it interacts with the gross objects of the world. That state is called waking, as we are in right now. Then you give up the identification of gross body when you go to sleep first, and there still remains identification of subtle body. That state is called dream state, where there is predominance of subtle body. There is no contact with the external gross world. There is a dream world, a projected world, world projected by the mind. You further withdraw yourself, give up identification, even the subtle body, and then there is identity with the causal body. That state is called deep sleep state. So gross, subtle, causal, waking, dream, deep sleep. In each of these states, there is subject and object, waker, dreamer, deep sleeper. Waker is called Vishwa, dreamer is called Tejasa, sleeper is called Prajna. Self is, so these are all three roles that the Atma plays. In waking, plays the role of the waker called Vishwa. In dream, in identification, subtle body plays the role of a dreamer called Tejasa. In deep sleep, in identification, causal body plays the role of sleeper called the Prajna. All roles. So one who pervades all the roles and transcends all the roles. It's called Turiya, the fourth. Fourth is not fourth, but counting waker, dreamer, deep sleeper, the self is as though called the fourth. So Tattvabodha unfolds the true nature of the self with reference to the three bodies, Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira, or the gross, subtle, causal bodies, or the waking, dream, deep sleep states, or the five seats. This is one aspect of one part of teaching of Vedanta, helping us recognize the true nature of ourselves as a consciousness that pervades this anatma but transcends anatma. The nature of consciousness that illumines anatma, the non-self. Second thing that we have to know in our life is what is this creation that we are confronting. Therefore, Tattvabodha also explains the creation, the universe, and starts the process of evolution from the very first cause called Maya. How Maya slowly transforms itself into. So Maya is the causal state, the cosmic causal state, then cosmic subtle state, cosmic gross state. The individual gross subtle causal bodies, the cosmic gross subtle causal bodies. Cosmic gross body is called Virat. Cosmic subtle body is called Hiranyagarbha. Cosmic causal body is called Ishvara. All three states of Maya. Consciousness or At self identified with Maya is called Ishvara. Consciousness identified with the cosmic subtle body is called Hiranyagarbha. Consciousness identified with the cosmic gross body is called Virat. And again, these are the cosmic costumes. The one that pervades all of them and transcends them is the same consciousness. So, then Tattvabodha unfolds this Mahavakya, the major statement called Mahavakya Tattvamasi, that thou art. Hey, you who takes yourself an individual being is no different from the cosmic being Ishvara. So Jiveshvara Aikyam, the identity of Jiva and Ishvara, individual self and cosmic self, one self, one consciousness alone, functioning to this individual body is called Jiva, same consciousness, manifesting through the cosmic body is called Ishvara. From the stem of Chaitanyam, there is only oneness. Thus Vedanta and Tattvabodha teaches how there's one truth called consciousness. And what is consciousness? Chit is also Sat or existence. And Sat and Chit happen to be boundless of Ananda. So one Satchidananda, Satyam Jnanamanantam, is called the self, the truth of individual, truth of Ishvara, truth of Jagat, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, the individual, the universe, and the creator. They're all three manifestations of one self, one consciousness, one truth, one Brahman. That's what you are, that's what I am, that everyone is, that's what everything is. Brahman means limitless. This limitlessness is the truth of what is, and truth of myself, truth of you, truth of everything. This knowledge is possible to gain in this life when we pursue the knowledge at the feet of a competent teacher who unfolds this to us, and one who has gained this knowledge and abidance in knowledge is called Jivan Muktaha. Jivan while living, Muktaha liberated, liberated while living. This Vedanta presents this very noble goal before us, that you can be liberated free while you are alive. Jivan Mukta. And so the text concludes by a description of Jivan Mukta, how he is free, liberated while living, free from all the bondage. All the bondage is only notional. It is what is called moksha, is the removal of the bondage, the notion of bondage. There is no real bondage, so there is no real liberation. What it is the dispelling of the notion of bondage. To discover that I always was liberated, that moksha or liberation is my nature. It is an accomplished fact. Bondage is a notion born of ignorance of myself, and moksha is the elimination of that notion by the knowledge of the true nature of myself. This is in essence what Tattvabodha teaches.